तच्छंयोरावृणीमहे गातुं यज्ञाय गातुं यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वं जिगातु भेषजम् शं नो अस्तु द्विपदे शं चतुष्पदे ओम शांति 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 ही। Arundhati ji was exaggerating many things. I am just a humble student of various Vedic scriptures, texts, and I can only study these texts and scriptures along with you. That's how it is said in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, when we say that a student studied with a teacher or something like that, the karaka, the vibhakti that is used is, for example, Ramena saha pathati. Ramena saha. So you always study along with the Guru. It's not that you study under the Guru. This studying under someone is a Western concept. Vedic concept is that we always study along with each other, together. So this studying together, see the one which you uttered, sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunaktu, it has got that word saha, saha, saha getting repeated. So it's always saha. We always do things together. So that's what we are going to do. For the next 3 days, we are going to study Mahabharata together, all of us. Bring out new understanding if it is possible by discussing, by interacting with each other. So the first session will be an overview of Mahabharata, the Vedic encyclopedia. Ma'am was saying, I don't want to say everything is in Veda. Yes, please don't say. Please, none of you, please don't say that everything is in Veda. But we have a word called encyclopedia. It claims that it has everything in it. But even it doesn't have everything in it, right? So when I claim that I am giving you an encyclopedia, it's just a claim that I am giving you everything. It has everything in it. So from that perspective, Mahabharata can be called an encyclopedia. It claims itself to be an encyclopedia. The beauty of Vedic literature, Vedas, starting right from the Vedas, is that they are self-conscious. They do an auto-study. They study themselves and they tell you what they are, right? Veda tells you what it is. Veda tells you what it covers. Veda tells you how to study that, how to study Veda. So this auto-study, in an introduction to me, Arundhati ji was mentioning auto-anthropology. This was the word coined by me for my PhD. Auto-anthropology is your own study about your own culture. Anthropology all the while has been study of, say, African culture or South American culture by the Americans or the British. Okay. So person hailing from one culture studies the other culture. Always the other was the focus. But if you study your own culture, and for that you have to alienate yourself from yourself, may objectify yourself, objectivize, remove the subjectivity in the study. That needs a lot of personality development. Okay? Removing subjectivity needs an elevation in personality. This was there with the rishis, we believe. Rishis had that amount of personality development from which they could remove the subjectivity in themselves, get into the objectivity, look at things from outside, look at themselves from outside. That's what they did. And Vedas have the articulation of this. Vedas have the articulation of the rishis getting out of themselves and looking at themselves. Outer body experience they have, and they look at themselves, look at Veda and tell you what Veda is. So, as part of that, Mahabharata also talked about itself, and as part of talking about itself, it claimed that it's an encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia in the sense of encyclopedia. Any encyclopedia cannot have everything in it, but it claims Mahabharata also is an encyclopedia from that perspective. Okay? So, this concept of Vedic encyclopedia I am going to talk about in the first session, and encyclopedic literature, it's a Vedic and contemporary idea also, we are going to talk about that. And the second theme is, okay, it's funny. Second theme is war and peace. I think, can we go back and go to the next file? This one, second one. Yeah. Okay. Now this mouse is jumping. Yeah. So, as part of that, we are going to discuss encyclopedic literature, a Vedic and contemporary idea, concept of fifth Veda. Most of you probably have heard the word Panchama Veda. Okay, fifth Veda. Mahabharata as Veda made easy. Actually, originally I used the Sanskrit word Upabrahmana. Arundhati ji said, oh, they might be getting afraid of these Sanskrit words, please remove the Sanskrit words. So, when I removed the Sanskrit word Upabrahmana, I made it Veda made easy. Okay, it means that. Upabrahmana means made easy. Okay, Veda made easy, and the other concept is Katha and Shastra. Whether Mahabharata is a Katha book or a Shastra book. What do you think? Mahabharata is a Katha book or a Shastra book? Katha, story, narrative. Is it a story or is it a Shastra? A story for you, story for many, okay? But it's a Shastra for many, okay? It claims itself to be a Shastra. Mahabharata is a Shastra. And in India, this very, very interesting combination of things in classifying texts exists. Bhagavata, for example, if you talk to a Gaudiya Vaishnava, ISKCON person, he says Bhagavata is a Shastra for them. Bhagavata is not a narrative, it's not a story. Okay? So, it's both a Katha and a Shastra. So, that's how a book can be a Katha and a Shastra together. We are going to discuss significance of statecraft in Vedas. Do we have statecraft in Vedas? Okay. Let us see if it has statecraft also. Why should it have statecraft at all? Vedas were the songs of the pastorals. They were shepherds, they were cowherds, they came from the northwestern part. So, how can cowherds or shepherds have statecraft? Okay, let us see that. Statecraft in Vedas and Puranas. Purana, what is Purana? Purana is all story, cock and bull stories, concoctions, concocted stories. How can concocted stories, all cock and bull stories have statecraft in them? Okay, let us see that. And there is Itihasa. Itihasa, the most confusing word in India today is Itihasa, because due to semantic change of the word from this original Sanskrit use into Hindi particularly and all the North Indian languages, the words Itihasa came to mean history. It literally means history now in all the North Indian languages, including Hindi. So, when somebody utters the word Itihasa, immediately they say history. It is all history. Let us remember that history is a modern discipline. It is a logical positivist discipline. It is a product of 18th century enlightenment. 18th century enlightenment has got all its logical positivist roots, and it has got all its Protestant Christianity roots. It has got all the roots of the culture from which that kind of a scientific study comes. And history departments all over the world today, the way they do history is different from the way Itihasa does the story of happenings. Okay? So, this distinction has to be maintained. Though there is a closeness between Itihasa and history, Itihasa is not history. Okay? History as a modern scientific discipline from the West, it's not. Okay? But if you broaden the definition of history to mean various kinds of doing history, Itihasa as one of the ways of doing history, yes. If we broaden the view of history, yes. But if we stick to the Western logical positivist methodology of history and historiography and still try to call Itihasa as that kind of a history, then all the problem comes. Okay? So, that Itihasa, statecraft in Mahabharata, Katha and Shastra, is it Katha or is it Shastra? An overview. Then the second theme will be War and Peace, a very important theme particularly for Chinmaya mission, because Swami Chinmayananda is the one who propagated this ahimsa paramo dharma from Mahabharata all over, and it is from him that the next sentence comes, ahimsa paramo dharma, okay, but dharma hinsa tathaiva cha was the word mentioned by Swami Chinmayananda. People are now trying to see from where it is, dharma himsa, is it there? This sentence was there in the script or not? Dharma himsa tathaiva cha is there in the script or not? This whole discussion starts from a lecture which was repeated by Swami Chinmayananda all over the places. So, ahimsa paramo dharma is a highly debated, highly controversial topic as far as Mahabharata is concerned, because nowadays there are allegations on Mahabharata, India, Indic scriptures, Vedas, that they are terrorism instigating books. There is Wendy Doniger, for example, says Bhagavad Gita is a terrorism inspiring book. And there is Romila Thopper doing the Tala Bhajan for this Wendy Doniger. And actually, I don't know whether Wendy Doniger is doing bhajan for Romila Thopper or Romila Thopper is doing bhajan for Wendy Doniger, but both together are harping on this idea of Bhagavad Gita being a book of terrorism, book instigating terrorism. I want to see Bhagavad Gita, that pravachan is done in hundreds and thousands of temples all over the country. Bhagavad Gita pravachans have been there all over the time. When Swamiji was there, Chinmaya Swamiji was there, I heard him when I was a small child, his lectures. It was all Bhagavad Gita all the time. I never saw a terrorist getting inspired from a temple. Hearing Bhagavad Gita speech, yeah, let me take a gun and let me start shooting everyone. But I don't know how weird ideas come to these guys. They started doing that. Let us see what ahimsa paramo dharma is. And superficially, when you study things superficially, you get an impression that Jainism is ahimsa paramo dharma, Buddhism is ahimsa paramo dharma, but Mahabharata cannot be. Mahabharata is the opposite of that. Himsa all the time. Kill, do war, battle. Let us see whether it is actually that or what. Why this whole book Mahabharata is war. It's a book of war, right? If you look at the parvas, among the 18 parvas of Mahabharata, only the first few parvas do not have the war. From the Bhishma Parva onwards, it's all war and post-war. So it's a book of war, it looks like a book of war. Is it a book of war, or is it a book inspiring everyone to go for war, or is it a book saying, no war, please don't do war? There are both the impressions. One impression is that it, for example, Jijabai is said to have narrated Mahabharata and Ramayana to Shivaji in his childhood to make him a warrior. So it is mentioned to be a book of Virarasa inspiring nature. And when you look at the whole book, you have in the post-war parvas, Stree Parva is a very big parva in it. Weeping all over by the women of the dead warriors. So people say that that whole pathos, that whole sorrow in the book is to tell you that war is bad, please don't go for wars. We had the experience at the end of Dwapara Yuga, at the beginning of Kali Yuga, we had a big world war. 18 Akshauhinis of soldiers, they died. Most of them died except a few countable people. Everyone died. Please don't go for war. So, both the impressions are there. Mahabharata is a book of anti-war message. It is asking you not to go for war. It's also mentioned to be a book of war inspiration for Shivaji and others. What is the truth? Is it a book of war, or is it a book which is not for war? You have Himsa and Ahimsa, and I am taking this as a theme for environment, war and peace as a theme for environment. I don't know how many of you are aware of the activism in the environmentalist area. Activists in environmentalist area, they don't only focus on plants, trees, planting trees and all that. There is a very big activity against war. They preach against war. And there is this whole philosophy of no war at all. Recently one girl on Twitter tweeted that her father was not killed by the Pakistani soldiers, her father was killed by war. And there was a big controversy about this. So that girl was tweeted against by these, on Twitter you have in the name of Indic, people like us, there is all kinds of nonsense happening. They tweet all kinds of things. They tweeted against this girl saying, you are tweeting against Indian soldiers. So she is not doing that. Poor girl, she was thinking that she was an environmentalist. She was thinking that she was a pacifist. She was thinking that she was against war in general. Okay? So as part of that she said, my father was not killed by the Pakistani soldiers, he was killed by war. There is this anti-war message all over. Okay? Beautiful message from environmentalists. Nuclear holocaust is very bad and for environment, and all the weapons that we have today are environmentally disastrous, not nature friendly. Okay? So, is it an environment theme? Let us see whether it is really an environment theme and how we can take it forward. And then come the diplomatic studies part of it. This is all focus on only one parva called Udyoga Parva. This whole diplomatic studies part is on Udyoga Parva. There was a talk arranged. I have many hats on my head. One of them is I coach people for civil services exams, IAS, IPS exams. And recently there was a conference arranged in Hyderabad with IAS, IPS officials, senior retired officials on the stage, and they were talking about the syllabus for these exams. And I was mentioning how the Mahabharata that was there in the syllabus I was teaching, and I was mentioning all the diplomatic studies and the statecraft issues on the stage. Immediately every IAS and IPS officer there stood up and started saying how bad I feel that when I studied in my childhood and youth, no one ever told me that these things are there in Mahabharata. How I wish I knew by the time I joined my service IAS service or IPS service, that this much of diplomatic studies or statecraft issues, all these were there in Mahabharata. No one ever told us any of these things. And there was a minister, and the minister also came forward and said, how I missed. He always misses, I know, but he just was imitating these bureaucrats and was trying to say, even I missed it. In my heart of hearts, I told you, even if I tell you, you will miss it. But see, everyone is missing this. Everyone. They never understood Mahabharata from the perspectives that we are discussing in this workshop today. And as part of that, we'll be discussing why war? Why no war? Both. Why war? Various perspectives. Why negotiations, ethics and strategy? Problem, being a Kshatriya is difficult. This line in my talk will get repeated in Udyoga Parva. Yudhishthira says this, Kshatriya papa karma. Kshatriya is a sinner. It's a very difficult life. Oh, Kshatriya life. Wow, Kshatriya life. I don't want to live this Kshatriya life. What is the Kshatriya life? Why is it so difficult? Why is he feeling the pain of being a Kshatriya? That's going to get repeated throughout. And this one interesting discussion about fate and free will, because this is again another allegation on not only Indian religious traditions, it is on all religion basically, that religions are considered to be fatalistic. People think that religions preach you, it is all your karma. You are born as a poor man, live as a poor man, that is your karma. You are born as a rich man, that is his karma, let him live a rich life. This is what Marxists tell you. When Marx says religion is the opium of the masses, this is what he means. He says that it is anti-progressive. Anti-progressive because it justifies the status quo. It justifies the status quo by saying that it is your karma. You are born with that. So you have to live with that. Is that what Puranas, Itihasas and Mahabharata say? Does it say it is your fate, live that life? Or does it say free will is very important? You have to exercise your free will, your own manava karma. And pre-war efforts, Udyoga Parva is all about pre-war efforts. Anyway, because you have already entered the course, let me make some very crucial things clear in the very beginning itself. What is the name of this Udyoga Parva? What is Udyoga? In Sanskrit, Udyoga means effort. Okay? It's effort. Udyoga Parva means effort chapter, effort part of the whole book. What is the effort for? Is it effort for war or is it effort for stopping the war? Actually, when you go inside, you will realize that both were going together. Efforts for stopping the war and efforts for war were going side by side. So, why? The same person, same nation, same side of the war goes for both war and stopping the war. Why? Pro-war efforts and strategies, various negotiations. There are Sanjaya Rayabara, Sanjaya Dautya, and there is Krishna Dautya. There is all kinds of Dautya there. So, what kinds of negotiations happened and what negotiation techniques we can learn from those negotiations? And Science and Art of Rhetoric. For the benefit of these BCom students, younger ones who want to figure out whatever it is, let me tell you that rhetoric is a science. Rhetoric is a discipline, a field which was studied in Greece. Cicero, C-I-C-E-R-O, C-I-C-E-R-O, Cicero was the first one to document the principles of rhetoric of the Greeks. Okay? And in Greece, there was a whole emphasis on oratory, speech giving, public speaking. and they were training people in that. And in this book on rhetoric, Cicero focuses on various kinds of rhetoric, rhetoric for war, rhetoric for courts, rhetoric for eulogies at the time of death, condolence messages, how they are given, all that. So then people see, do Indians have a science of rhetoric? Do Indians have a book on public speaking, oratory? There is no book. People use the word rhetoric in India as a synonym for Kavya Shastra, Alankara Shastra only. And in Alankara Shastra, in Rasa Shastra, there is nothing like oratory or speech giving or any such thing. From the Greeks, in Greece, all the alankaras that we talk about, figures of speech, like simile, metaphor, all these things, they form part of rhetoric, science of rhetoric, science of giving speeches, science of oratory. But we have the same things, figures of speech, alankaras, as part of Kavya Shastra. How to write kavyas, narrative poems. Why did it happen that way? Why did it form part of rhetoric, that is science of oratory, art of oratory there? And do we have an art of oratory? Here in Udyoga Parva, you have the examples of Sanjaya's speech, Bhishma's speech, Drona's speech, particularly the Atal Bihari Vajpayee of Mahabharata, Sri Krishna. Okay, Sri Krishna was known as the biggest orator of the times, like the way in modern times, in contemporary times, people look up for Atal Bihari Vajpayee for that oratorical skills. Okay, he can convert anyone from one opinion just to the opposite opinion through his speech. Sri Krishna was like that. What kind of speeches Sri Krishna gave? What is that art of rhetoric that he was using in the court of Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra? That is there. Science and art of negotiations, diplomacy. Okay. Here the beauty is Yudhishthira asked Krishna. The Parva in Mahabharata is called Bhagavad-Dhyana Parva as part of Udyoga Parva. There Krishna takes opinions of different people. Yudhishthira says, please go and negotiate for peace, not for war. And then, after telling why he should negotiate for peace, he says, while giving you a speech, give your speech this way, this way, this way, this way. He gives a lecture on the art of rhetoric, lecture on the art of negotiations to Sri Krishna. Okay? So, Yudhishthira or some Narendra Modi giving a lecture to Atal Bihari Vajpayee, give the speech this way. But Krishna was so humble. He said, yeah, I learned from you, sir, how to give speeches, how to negotiate. But it is the structure of these books that makes Yudhishthira give this speech about this. It's not that actually Yudhishthira was thinking himself to be a greater, more knowledgeable in the art of negotiations or all. The structure of these books is like that. They want to talk to the BCom students. They want to tell them, you want to know what is rhetoric? Okay, we'll put it in the mouth of Yudhishthira, we'll put it in the mouth of Satyaki, we'll put it in the mouth of Sahadeva. In some mouth they put and they make the science come out. So he gives the whole speech about how negotiations are to be done, what is not to be done, what to be done, do's and don'ts of negotiations and diplomacy is all there. So, as part of that, this ideal attorney diplomat topic comes out through that speech. Ideal attorney here is Sri Krishna. What are the aspects of Sri Krishna's rhetoric and speeches? And we have this Sun Tzu, the whole book of Art of War. I titled the theme as Art of War only. The book is also called Art of War. It's a popular book on the racks of these modern Indian time pass readers. Okay, they want books for reading on the flight, so they are mostly sold in the airports. Art of War, Sun Tzu. People read these books as if they are actually going for a war. They never go. But this book is by a Chinese author. It talks about various strategies of war and all that. The introduction to the book and everything gives you an impression that is among the whole parts of the world, it is only China which had art of war articulated. There was an author talking about the art of war, and the entire Western world has to learn the art of war only from China and all that. Nowhere in that book a comparison to Mahabharata, a comparison to any other book is given. Westerners are very, very careful. They never want to make an already powerful person have confidence. Okay? India is already a powerful nation. They always want to remove the confidence part of it. So they never want to say anything good about this country, so that confidence added to power is very dangerous to them. So they want to remove the confidence as far as possible. They never mention Mahabharata. We'll in this workshop see how art of war is discussed in Mahabharata in various different ways. Strategies, formations, these things you already know. Formations, for example, Chakravyuh and many other formations, already people know. It's all there on the internet. All the pictures are also given. But they don't discuss this as part of art of war from a book which is BC, before Christ, thousands of years before Christ. And deployment of resources. If you have resources, not only soldiers, whatever kind of resources you have, how to deploy. You have astras, you have shastras, you have people, you have strategists, where to employ them, how to employ them. And there is ethics. Can war have rules, ethics? This is a good question, because war itself is unethical, right? For that girl who said that her father was killed by war, not Pakistani soldiers, war itself is unethical. How can there be ethics of an unethical activity? Okay? So, thus can war have rules or ethics if war itself is unethical? And violations of ethics. For example, that Sri Lankan leader who lost the elections after ridding his country from a problem. One problem was hanging in that country for decades and decades, all the time. This man, with just a stroke of war against LTTE, he got rid of the whole thing, but the reward for him was he lost the elections. How did he lose the elections? This art of propaganda, that, oh, he did something bad, he killed people badly, he killed people unethically, he violated ethics of war and all that. People believed he lost the elections. So, violations of ethics. Even if we go for war now, for example, in Kashmir, we are violating ethics, you know that? We are violating ethics in Kashmir, we are violating ethics in Northeast, we are, this propaganda that we are violating ethics, it all comes from this propaganda machinery that the left liberal media has all over the world. They keep telling you that India is doing something bad. You cannot settle in Kashmir. You cannot buy property in Kashmir. You cannot get anything from Kashmir, but you have to give away everything for Kashmir, taxpayers' money, and then you control some stone pelters. You are violating war ethics. You are violating human rights. So that lessons for contemporary war affairs about war ethics, whatever war ethics have been discussed. How to end the war? Enemy annihilation. We have this philosophy in India that people say that the ultimate end of war is Shatru Shesha should not be there. You should not leave any Shastru Shesha. Annihilation of all the enemies should be the end. But to what extent? Did we eliminate everyone at the end of Mahabharata? Was everyone eliminated? Or till the purpose achieved? What was the purpose of Yudhishthira? Did he achieve the purpose? or till anger is subsided. Embodiment of anger there was Ashwathama. Ashwathama's anger was to be subsided. And then the next theme is state and governance. And for this Vedic theory of origin of state and governance, oh, where was your faculty member, that governance person? Nitin. Yeah, he's not? Yeah, when I was writing this title, I had him in mind. Nitin in mind. Vedic theory of origin of state and governance. Is state necessary? Is government necessary? Younger friends, is government necessary? Do you know that there are some people who said government should not be there? Government should not be there is also a philosophy. There should be no government at all. Somebody said he is interested in political philosophy. They are called anarchists. In political philosophy, such philosophers who said government is bad, government should not be there, are called anarchists. Anarchist philosophy. ANARCHIST. Anarchist philosophy. And there was this Delhi chief minister who said, after becoming chief minister, he said, I am an anarchist. Okay. He was thinking that he was using the word from political philosophy, but in a popular communication it means something totally different. The word anarchism means something totally different. But there is this philosophy. And Marxism, Karl Marx's revolutionary socialism, he borrowed it from Hegel, from various political philosophers earlier to him. So he borrowed it from anarchism also. Because he borrowed it from anarchism also, one of the ultimate goals of Marxist revolution, socialist revolution, is to make the state go away. Actually, Marx is a historical determinist, so he doesn't say you have to make state go away. He says state goes away by itself. State withers away by itself. State naturally goes away. Once you bring the revolution, once you bring the proletariat dictatorship, once you nationalize the means of production and distribution, then state goes away by itself. There are three artificial things, you know. One is state. Government is artificial. Family is artificial. Property is artificial. According to Marxism, according to Karl Marx. So ultimately these three artificial things will go because anything artificial has to go. Okay. So property, artificial, it has to go. Family, artificial, it has to go. State, artificial, it has to go. So they will go naturally in course of history, all the three will go. So state will go, state should go. Did we have in Indic philosophy a philosophy that state should not be there or state cannot be there? It was there, I will tell you how. Even in Indian Itihasas and Puranas, we talked about a stateless state. Actually, when people talk of philosophy of governance, they always talk about it from the theories of origin of state. There are 5 major theories of origin of state. From those 5 major theories of origin of state, philosophy of governance emerges. Okay? So, how those 5 different philosophies of origin of state are reflected in our Vedic philosophy, those things let us discuss. Discussions of state and governance, role models or case studies in the main plot, that is Pradhana Itivritta, role models of case studies, sub-narratives, upakhyanas. There was a lot of Sanskrit in the titles originally. Arundhati ji asked me to remove the Sanskrit so that you guys don't get afraid. So I removed. Sub-narratives are upakhyanas. They are called. No, actually. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for saying that because I do not know from where they come. So it was good that I removed all that Sanskrit so that I don't intimidate you by using all those words. But now that you are here, you will learn these words. In future, you will be saying Upabrahmana When I say Upabrahmana, actually when I wrote that, Arundhati ji on the phone said, what is this Upabrahmana? Then, okay, don't worry. Now, after this workshop, all of you will be using this word Upabrahmana. Okay, shall we say Upabrahmana, Brahmana, Upabrahmana, okay, Upabrahmana, okay. Upabrahmana is a word, we'll use it. That's a very important word. So, Upakhyana is also a word, sub-narratives, let us see. And non-state aspects of governance. Governance is not done only by the state, by the government. Non-state actors are also there in that. Non-state players in a bad or weak state. If the state is bad, if the state is weak, there will be non-state players. Who are they? Are they there in Mahabharata? Non-state players irrespective of the quality of the state. Even if the state is very good, there will be non-state players. Who are those in Mahabharata? Anti-state, non-state players and governance. Anti-state, insurgency we talk about, okay? People who revolt against the government, they are anti-state. Also non-state players and how they think they are participating in governance. Are they there in Mahabharata? That also we'll discuss. Next theme will be justice and human rights. Are they there or justice and human rights there in the Vedic worldview? Roots of human rights in the West. First of all, this question of human rights itself is highly debatable. People say that human rights is a modern concept. You don't have human rights as a concept in the Vedic tradition or Indian tradition or ancient India. You don't have any topic of rights at all there. So, for that, what you need to understand is roots of human rights in the West. Read any book of human rights in the West. They don't say the concept of human rights has come only during the modern period in the West. They always trace it back to Aristotle. They always trace it back to the ancient Greek philosophers. But when you say that human rights was there in Mahabharata, no, how can it be there? Someone was saying he was interested in history of science. Let me tell you, there are 3 different models of tracing history of ideas. One is this linear model. And within linear model, you have the 2 models again, evolutionary model and devolutionary model. In the evolutionary model of history of ideas, you say that if there is an idea in the past, somewhere in BC, it has to be primitive. It has to be primitive because it is old. Any old idea has to be bad and low and primitive. Naturally, you are here because you are more developed. So, your knowledge has to be more developed. There is another model coming from the German Romanticist philosophers like Kant, which is devolutionary model. They say that knowledge has degraded itself. Originally, knowledge was good. All original knowledge was nice and knowledge is getting devolved. Devolution is happening. And the third model is a non-linear model in which we agree that something is already found, forgotten and again found, or something is found in a location that is known only in that location, others did not know, others by coincidence knew the same thing again. You understand? So, for example, there is a forest, a certain fruit and different animals there. Some explorer discovered that forest and the locations there, and later that man died or his descendants died. People forgot. And another explorer, a new explorer goes and finds the same forest again, same fruits, same animals, and comes back and says, I found it. It's not that he found it for the first time. It can be found again and again and again. People can find the same forest and same people, same animals, same fruits again and again. That is non-linear model. And another thing is, there is a medicine, for example, a particular herb found in say South American country, in Mexico, they know that use of, for example, aloe vera. Now all over the Western countries, aloe vera is considered to be a Mexican discovery as a herb, but aloe vera is known as Kumari here, and Kumari was known in Ayurveda from a very long time. And we had Kumari Asava, Kumari Grita, Kumari, everything in Ayurveda. So it's a coincidence that Kumari here and aloe vera there in Mexico are found, right? So this is a non-linear model of history of ideas. This linear model of history of ideas makes you think that if you have now, you should not be having it in the past. So these ideas that, for example, human rights, if they are there today, they should not be there in the past, is evolutionary model. And also within that, you have this given idea that human rights is something good, and this good is not there in the past, because it has to be evolution. It has to be bad in the past. But let us see how human rights can be traced to the Vedic foundations. Let me just give you a sample. Draupadi was disrobed. From a modern point of view, from a modern standard, is it violation of human rights or not? Huh? It is, right? So Mahabharata said, wonderful, Duryodhana, congratulations. Dushasana, congratulations. How well did you disrobe? Right? What did Mahabharata say? Duryodhana's lap was broken. Right? Dushasana's chest was opened and the blood was removed. Both Duryodhana, Dushasana, Karna, everyone including Shakuni were given death punishment for disrobing a woman. Did Mahabharata consider disrobing of Draupadi to be a violation of human rights or not? Even Amba, who was rejected by Bhishma, rejecting a woman after kidnapping her, her proposal for love was considered to be violation of human rights, and Amba was given a chance to kill Bhishma. Bhishma, the greatest warrior. For that, Amba turned into a transvestite, Shikhandi. And she became instrumental in killing Bhishma. You have human rights issues all over Mahabharata. Every time they were considered as human rights violations only. Of course, they did not use your word. How can they use? Did they use pizza there? How can they use? Was there pizza, burger, hot dog in Mahabharata? How can they be there? Right? You understand what I am saying? Mahabharata might be having payasam in it. No pizza, no burger. Okay? So, Mahabharata need not have the word human rights as human rights. Okay? If they are considering a certain activity to be a violation of rights of a person, it is the concept of human rights. Okay? So that's what we are going to discuss. And within the human rights concepts, we are going to discuss women, gender, some case studies. Case of Draupadi, case of Shakuntala, case of Amba, and some other cases if time permits. And caste in Mahabharata. Actually, deliberately, I am using an inaccurate word called caste in Mahabharata. Caste is different from Varna. Okay? Varna is the system, social system that is talked in Mahabharata, Itihasas and Puranas. It's not caste. Caste is what? Vanniyar is a caste, Chettiar is a caste, Reddiyar is a caste, Vallalar is a caste. Right? All these are castes. Is there Vallalar in Mahabharata? Is there Vanniyar in Mahabharata? Is there Chettiyar in Mahabharata? Is there Reddiyar in Mahabharata? Huh? Is there any of these castes that we have, thousands and thousands of castes that we have in India, do they exist in either Manusmriti, Itihasas or Puranas, Vedas? No. Caste system has no reflection in the Vedic literature. All that it has is Varna system. So just for convenience, I used the word caste. Okay. Is Varna based on birth or not? Case of Karna, case of Ekalavya, all these issues, human rights issues. Ekalavya's finger was taken away. A very big human rights issue. Let us discuss about that. So, this is the roadmap, friends. It's time for tea. Okay. Okay.